and I'll wrap it up. So I'm Scott Blaisdell. I work for BMC Software. Our company is based in Houston. I am based in Austin. I actually modified my slides because everybody else that I saw that did a presentation, they all started out with a little bit about themselves, and I didn't have that in my slides, and I wanted to follow suit. So I'm going to kick it off with a few things about me. I'm a car nut, love cars, I love car racing. This is actually my car. I love old Japanese cars, and I've done some restoration on them, etc. I love wrenching on stuff. This is actually my son running around Sebring, which is a pretty cool adventure for him. He's a photographer, and he actually took that top photograph, which is at the Circuit of the Americas, which is based in Austin. So that's another little plug for a little bit about me, since that's where I live. But that's not my only hobby, and software isn't my only hobby. I also do woodworking. So the reason I bring this up, not only just to have something to kind of kick us off, but specifically I got into wood turning. And have any of you guys ever done or seen wood turning? Have you done it? Does your job stress you out at all? Yeah? Wood turning is like one of the most therapeutic things I've ever found in my life. It's awesome. You'd literally turn, in this case, a chunk of wood that I picked up off the side of the road, literally. It turns out it was peach wood. It was really nice. And you just kind of cut it up with a chainsaw or whatever, get it, so it fits on the lathe, and then you spin it. So it's this massive weighted object flopping around, and you put a gouge, basically a really sharp piece of metal against it, and you cut it. So instead of moving the tool against the wood to make a cut, you move the wood against the tool. It's interesting. And stuff goes flying. I've literally had stuff hit this, little shavings hit the ceiling. I mean, it's just fun. It's totally therapeutic, and you can't think about anything else while you're doing it. So it's a huge stress reliever. So if you have a stressful job, buy a lathe. They're a couple $100. Find a piece of wood on the side of the road and go to town. It's a ton of fun. And this is what can possibly come out of stuff like that. And I'm also a big audiophile, so I built some speakers for my home theater. Size doesn't do that justice. That's actually in my garage. You can see the garage door opener right there. These are 8 feet tall, kind of massive, whatever. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, okay. Getting on to why we're here. So I mentioned I work for BMC Software. A little bit about the company. You're not here to hear about my company, but to set the stage, we do enterprise IT management software. We've been around since 1980. We're old-fashioned. However, in 2013, we went from being a public company to a private company. One of the reasons for that was we really kind of wanted to revitalize the business. Business was doing fine. Our stock was fine. We were financially sound. But we knew technology was rapidly changing. The marketplace is rapidly changing. Everybody focuses or references the likes of Uber and Airbnb, et cetera, as examples of how technology is changing the marketplace. And we saw that. And we didn't want to get left behind. We didn't want our stock to go down. We didn't want our customers to be disappointed in us moving forward. But we had to change who we were and how we did things in order to achieve the next 30-something years of growth. So we went private, and then we invested a ton of money into the company, one of which got me a job, because we really didn't have product management at BMC before. We were very much an engineering-focused company. The developers thought something was cool, or, hey, this new thing called MongoDB is out there. Let's find a way to use that and put it in the product, and maybe a new feature comes out of that maybe a customer or user cares about. But other than that, there wasn't really any purpose-built innovation, nothing strategic. So they built out a whole product management team, which again got me my job, and said we're going to become very strategically focused, very customer focused, and start building products that really matter based on new technologies that take us forward. All of that led to a series of SaaS products, one of which we acquired, one of which we built in-house. This is just, by the way, I'm speaking now just within my business unit in BMC. It's a big company with multiple business units, but I don't know anything about those other guys. I got too many things to worry about. So we bought one SaaS product and immediately took it to market just to realize that we had a customer onboarding issue, hence Pendo. One of the primary use cases for Pendo is customer onboarding. So I brought Pendo on board. We instrumented it, and literally our onboarding issues nearly vanished. It doesn't mean that every customer that signed up for a trial turned into a paying customer, but it went from well below the industry average to well above the industry average, and then it actually came down, and we're still riding about or above industry averages for conversion rates. And that was solely due to Pendo. Okay, so that was cool, that was good, and we could use Pendo for some other things to evangelize the product or make feature announcements in that SaaS product, et cetera, all the typical stuff. But I ended up moving off of our SaaS products and back onto some of our on-premise products, our legacy products, and was handed a challenge. In the past, think on-premise software now, no fancy SaaS stuff. You build a piece of software, you work on it for 12 to 18 months, and before you release it, you run a beta program, right? You got to put it in customers' hands and get their feedback and make sure there's no big oops in there, or at least hope that they find the big oops. And this was an arduous process of which I'd heard horror stories. And then I was asked, because no one else wanted to do it again, I was asked to run the beta process. So having experience with Pendo, trying to think outside the box, I decided to use Pendo in our SaaS products. So a couple things real quick. This is no joke. If you run or work in a company like I do, where you still have kind of legacy processes and legacy software that running on premise, and you run a beta, this is what you're looking forward to. Lots of phone calls with customers to set things up with them, to deliver the software to them, which is many, many gigabytes, et cetera. They have trouble downloading it all. They have trouble installing it. They have trouble configuring it. They have questions about this new thing that really isn't new, that they just never knew existed before, and it throws them for a loop, and just constant feedback. And I can't, literally, if I actually tallied the number of emails from our last beta that I was just like a fly on the wall for, it would be in the thousands. Just with our customers, we're talking about a dozen customers. All the communications back and forth, it was thousands of emails. It was ridiculous. And during the day, you'd be on the phone with the customer trying to help them out, your tech support, your customer success, you're the development manager, logging bugs and all kinds of stuff. And then by night, I was basically taking all the notes all the things that customers had told me, and now I'm logging RFEs or requests for enhancements, future stuff based on, well, we did this install and we had this problem, and gosh, if it had just worked a different way, we think that would have been better in the first place. So now I got to fix the issue that they found, but also make it better in the future. So I became this poor chap over here, which is what I will look like when I lose the rest of my hair, sitting there just typing all day long and just a frown on my face, just processing all this day. It was horrible, just horrible. So I decided to revamp this process. And I really wanted to focus on these key areas for this beta process, right? So let me translate just very verbally for you. I'm literally trying to think like a new product manager should think about an old process. So kind of identify what it is we're really doing wrong, verbalize it, write it down, and then come up with an action plan for how to deal with these issues, and then translate that into actual action. So first we had to simplify things. I'm not going to spend all this time, building out documentation and coordinating things with customers and walking them through the process, all those things I talked about. I'm not going to do that. I want to simplify it for us, but more importantly, I want to simplify it for the customer. Next, I want them to focus on the things in the new version that have changed or that are new. That's what we really care the most about, right? From version 1 to version 2, if we made no change in a particular feature, I don't want customers even looking at that, quite frankly. It's a waste of their time. So have them focus on the stuff that really matters, that we need that feedback on. Automate as much as we can so that we are spending a lot less time and our customers are spending a lot less time getting everything set up. Remember, this is old-fashioned on-premise software, so there's a lot of heavy lifting there. And then I wanted to standardize this beta. I wanted to come up with something that was not only better, but could be repeatable across our many on-premise products. So that was the goal. That's how I defined success. The recipe that led me to was Pendo working in conjunction with AWS And I hope you guys can read that in the back of the room. Okay, I see squinting. So what we did is, instead of giving our software to customers and letting them download it and install it in their labs, which they had to provision hardware for and all that stuff, we just set it all up in AWS. By the way, we'd never done that before, and we didn't know if it would work, but turns out it worked flawlessly, thank goodness. So we did that and then instrumented Pendo on top of that. Our system is a multi-tenant system, so we set up tenancies for each beta customer and then user IDs for each user, and they were up and running. Then we set up, using Pendo, we set up the launcher, which we renamed to what we called the Beta Handbook, which had all of our guides in it that would walk users through those specific features that we wanted them to check out. Okay? And let me walk you through what... All right, somehow my slides got out of order, so skip that one. I'll come back to that one in a minute. If you're using the newest, latest, greatest PowerPoint on the Mac, it tends to do that. If you like clicking the wrong thing, your slides, it'll jump them. Anyway, apparently that bit me. So here's the Beta Handbook. Here are the guides. Very simple, easy to discover, named with terminology that our customers would understand. So they would know, oh, I don't really care about that. I don't do that. I don't use that part of the product, or that one I care about, click on it. When they click on it, we had a guide step that looked something like this for every single one. They were all very consistent, so I set up templates. And a template for this is a colleague of mine, Taylor, who was here earlier but had to leave for personal reasons, unfortunately. We recorded a short video for each feature. We did this for a couple of reasons, and my customer success colleagues will probably like me for this idea, or I think it's a good idea anyway. We wanted to put a face, a personal face, behind our product in front of our customers. So all of our videos were Taylor or me or one of the other product managers who were the experts in that area of our product where this new feature lived. We were the ones delivering a message to those customers, telling them why we did what we did, not how it worked, just what it is, why we did it, and that's it. These I don't have the timing on here. His video was, I think, just at a minute. Most of ours were less than a minute long. So it's just a little excerpt and gave us that face to the name and association, personal association to the product, which I think is a pretty important piece. So then we'd run through all the guide steps, right, through the features. I'm not going to go through one of these features. Some of them had like 4 steps. Some of them had 40 steps. This is another thing I'll come back to later about things we learned about our product from this simple exercise. But in the end, we asked a couple of polls. We had 2 polls. This is the first. Just how useful was this feature? Again, this is part of making it standardized and simple. We have this, how useful was this feature? Well, you define how you define useful, however you want. It might be, you might say, well, this is really a cool feature. I can totally see how this would be useful. But for me, I don't think I'll use it much because it just doesn't affect me. You may score that high, you may score that low. That's okay. I'll explain how that all works in the end. But we leave that up to the user. So they give us some rankings. This really helps us identify. If somebody gives us a 1 here, it's sort of a red flag. It may turn out to be nothing. They may say, I just don't do this, so it doesn't matter to me. So I give it a 1. Somebody else may give it a 1 because that's exactly what they wanted to see in the product, except we did it wrong. And we would vet those 2 and either do something with the latter and obviously not with the former. The second poll that we would run is simply, how can we improve this feature? Just a text box. Let us know what we could do. Change things up, simplify this or that, whatever. Amazing feedback came from this simple thing. Now, compare and contrast how we did betas prior to using Pendo. We had a Word document that was over 40 pages that had, a few screenshots and some descriptions and steps per thing we wanted the customers to go through. They would look at it, they would start going through it, they'd get really bored with it, and then they would just go play with the product and then just send us a whole bunch of emails about every little thing that they saw that was not what they liked. So they lost focus. In here, we got highly specific feedback on exactly what they saw. And they would give us details about, well, as I was going through this, if you hadn't had a little guide telling me to click there, I never would have known to click on that little icon. That icon is meaningless to me. Give me something that's more intuitive. I mean, down to the nitty-gritty details, we got that feedback. We had never gotten that level of feedback before. So just by simply putting this in was really a transformative for our beta feedback. And then last, for any documentation people that might be in the room, I ran into a few during the conference, so I know that they're here, but I don't know if they're in the room. We also pointed users towards our docs. So we had beta docs on our website, kind of behind a login, which we gave them all the login. And so we asked them to go view that documentation related to that feature to make sure the docs also help describe the feature well and made sense, et cetera. Our docs people liked the feedback that they got on this so much. It was just night and day to what they'd gotten from customers getting early access to our docs in the past, that I actually received an award, an internal award. We do these quarterly. I received an internal award I was nominated by our docs people just by putting this in that gave them the feedback that they've been looking for. So pretty cool stuff. Okay. So we set all this stuff up, we got these guys, we were collecting this feedback. Customers were really, truly self-serving themselves. They weren't asking me. In fact, we didn't even have a single phone call. We had an initial email sending them all the details to how to access the beta environment and our beta docs, et cetera. That was it. Had a few back and forths with some customers who had some technical issues, security restrictions on their network, et cetera. But other than that, it was all self-service. And all of a sudden, the feedback started rolling in. Well, as that started rolling in, I realized, oh, crap, we're going to have to, as PMs, like all of us, are going to have to log into Pendo every day, go run the visitor report, and check out, is there any new feedback? And that sort of sucks. It sucks. So it just so happened that I think it was the day prior to me realizing this is when you guys had this Pendo had this beta announcement about Zapier integration. And I'm like, oh, yes, let's hook that up. Quick email to support. They enabled my account, got my key, literally 10 minutes to set it up. And we had Pendo via Zapier sending our feedback as it's coming in near real time right into Slack, which was kind of an interesting thing because nobody on my team used Slack, just me. So I had to convince them all, you got to install Slack, you got to join, and get set up at the right channel. I told you we're old-fashioned here, but we're coming around. So anyway, so we got that set up, and we were getting that feedback. And what was really cool about that is literally when a customer, it's only happened a couple of times, but when a customer found a bug in the product, they ranked it low, and in the how can we improve this feature, they said this just didn't work. I clicked here, and I got this error, da-da-da-da-da. And we see that within a minute. I mean, it's right there in Slack. We get the notification, we look at it, we go, yeah, that should work. Okay, go talk to engineering, get that fixed. In previous betas, we had a 40-page Word document that hopefully they would fill out, which is where they would have put this information. And at the end of the month-long beta, they send that back to us, and then we have a 2-hour conference call to go through it all. I told you, it was horrible. I know, we're old-fashioned. But we would get these 40-page documents from all these customers. It would take us, that's after a month, it would take us another several weeks just to process through all of that feedback and vet it all. And by then, it was way too late to have any fixes in the product. We were literally about to ship it. So the betas we did in the past were almost completely pointless. In a rare case, would a customer actually call us and say, I found a major issue. You guys need to know right away. But if they didn't do that, we were blind. This exposed it, and we had that near immediate access to that data. I can't actually remember why I put this screenshot in other than to show you we had 44 visitors in this time frame. And oh, yes, I remember now. We had no idea in previous betas whether customers were ever doing anything. In fact, we have a reason to believe, pretty good reason to believe, that we had some feedback come from one of our more hostile, if you will, customers that was kind of negative, that was not rooted in any sort of logic or reality. He would give us feedback telling us, oh, this is just terrible, this didn't work. And we go in and, it doesn't work like that at all. Literally, we didn't know what he was talking about. Well, we have reason to believe that he was thinking about a couple of versions ago, never even looked at the new beta, but knew what he wanted to see in the beta, and so he basically just gave us a whole bunch of negative feedback to make us deliver but we'd already fixed it. So anyway, This allowed us to show and prove who was actually using the site. And I don't have all of the screenshots in here, right? But you can very easily drill down and say, I got feedback from Joe. Well, did Joe actually run that guide? How much time did he spend in that guide? What steps did he get through on that guide? I can see it all now. I know Joe did the work, and so his feedback is actually sort of validated. And we weeded out any feedback that we didn't feel was valid for that reason. So that was super helpful. Never with any other tool have we ever had any sort of exposure like that. And Pendo gives it to us by default. So here's one of the visitor reports that we set up. This is the one capturing all of the how useful is this feature data. And what we did is we just simply used that nice little CSV export. Thank you for being simple and just giving us that basic stuff. I know CSV is old-fashioned, but we're old-fashioned and we like it. So we'd export that and then throw it into Excel, and now I can generate this nice little chart, like 3 clicks, and it's there. And my executives now can see this, and they can see, to them, this tells them customers either liked or did not like the new features in this release. One little picture, it all boils down to all that feedback for that persona in my company. I can boil it down to this one thing. And so imagine if we'd had one that was way down here. We would have probably actually pulled it out of the release and wouldn't have showed it to the executives because that would be embarrassing. And luckily we didn't have that. But this is just another way to visualize that data. So it took a couple of minutes to set this up. Okay, so what were some of the benefits we realized? I sort of already talked about some of this, but the focus was key. To me, knowing how we use Pendo with our SaaS products, it's really not any different in terms of the benefits we realize by using Pendo on our on-premise products. You can, because it's a guide that you're literally walking users through things, you can help them be very focused. We used it on showing off capabilities of our product. On the flip side, you want to help users achieve certain things. I know this is obvious, but the reason I bring up, that there's kind of 2 ways to use these guides is that there's probably a lot of other ways to use these guides as well. I don't think it boils down to just these 2. I just came up with this one for this use case, but there's probably lots and lots of ways to creatively use guides. And I'll go back to my wood turning thing. Not only is it therapeutic, but if you're like me, an engineer, you're kind of just a problem solver. You don't really think very creatively many times. Wood turning actually helped bring out a creative person inside of me that I didn't know existed. Now, I still can't play musical instruments or dance, or I'm not that kind of creative, but it's sparked an area of creativity. And I think that actually helps me be a better product manager as well, right? Think outside the box, think very creatively, leverage things like Pendo in new ways to achieve business results. Okay, so sorry, that was my little mini soapbox. In the previous betas, customers, and I'm actually being extremely generous here. Some customers told me different numbers, but I don't want to be that blatant. You'll understand. Customers used to spend between 5 and 10 days over the course of a month doing nothing but beta testing our software. They literally stopped doing their daily jobs and tested our software. Now, you might think that's a little crazy, but our software helps them manage their data centers, and these are data center management people. So if the new version of our software that they adopt and roll out causes them issues, it can cost them a lot more time in the future. So they were willing to give us that time, but it really sucked that we required that of them. And many of them didn't truly have the time to give, but they found a way to work nights or whatever in order to give us that time. I actually had one customer, I'll admit it was just one, say, I went through all the guides, I gave you all the feedback, everything, in 1 hour. Actually, he said slightly less than an hour is the quote. I didn't think anybody would spend less than a day. He did it in an hour. And he gave us really good feedback as well. The average was probably in the 8 to 10 hours total is what users spent. But compared to previously, which I say here 5 to 10 days, but again, customers, some of them would even spend more than that. Dramatic improvement for our customers. And they didn't have those long, boring documents to fill out, which they essentially didn't fill out in the end anyway. Immediate return of the customer feedback, I talked about that. and we generated those reports. That was some of the benefits that I was hoping to realize out of this, and we did. And there's some stats to prove it. So let me go back to the slide that went out of order now. We have some unexpected benefits. There's no way I could have gotten that out of order on my own. You're not going to hold that against me, right? Okay, good. Because that's pretty egregious. We got some bonuses here as well. I was the one implementing most of the guides in the beginning, and then my buddy Taylor, who you saw the picture of, I incorporated him and trained him to build some of the guides to help out. During that process, we found several defects in our UI code. Now, these aren't like bugs that a customer would run into and something would stop working or malfunction. It was, objects in the UI wouldn't appear under certain circumstances when technically they should have. And it was sort of an invisible user thing in most cases, but they would have, I don't know if I could describe this, but you guys have all seen those UIs where you have the little nav pane on the left-hand side, and at the top, we call it the hamburger. It's the 3 lines, little menu type button. Well, in our app, we have one of those that opens that nav pane or collapses that nav pane, very common. Well, when the nav pane is collapsed, that icon, that image, is one image. When you click it and you open the nav pane, it changes color, so that's just part of our UI design. But instead of just changing the color or doing a new image with the same object name, no, they gave us a different object name. Well, I asked the developer, and he's like, oh, I didn't even know that we did that. And so it made the guides disappear, right? Because I was pointing a guide at that object. As soon as they clicked it, the guide would disappear because the object disappeared. So he was like, that's completely unintentional, and that would have broken things in the future because of some plans that we have. And he's like, you just stumbled across this and saved us from probably having to diagnose this and figure this out later. Again, no user error, but we found some issues in our product just by implementing the guides, an unexpected benefit. I mentioned in the beginning we had some simple features that required 3 to 5 steps to walk people through, and then we had some that required 40 steps to walk through. Clearly, as I'm the guy going through building all those 40 steps, I'm saying to myself, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Why in the world does this take 40 steps? And so I'm writing down some notes about we need to simplify this, right? And I have to build the guide at 40 steps because it is what it is for this beta. But the next release, we're going to dramatically simplify some of these workflows just because I always say the best way to learn is to teach. The best way to understand how your customers use your product is to use your product in some way like building a guide to teach them how to use your product. All of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Our next version after this one we're on will definitely have some simplified workflows in our UI, which our customers will greatly benefit from. And by the way, some of the feedback we got in this beta was that we needed to simplify some of the workflows. So I kind of saw that one coming. But anyway, the last unexpected benefit, and there's probably actually more, but I don't want to bore you guys to death, was, I've said it 5 times, we are old-fashioned. Our customers know us as old-fashioned. They think of us as a lot less old-fashioned now, just because of our use of Pendo and doing this through a hosted beta, making it really simple, very interactive, et cetera. So literally using Pendo has changed the perception of our customers, of who we are. And they're starting to now see tangible, identifiable, discussable examples of the transformation that my company has gone through since we went private. All this stuff we wanted to do is starting to actually now reach the customer, and they're seeing it, and they're putting their finger on it and saying, and I literally had customers tell me, this was phenomenal. I've never done a beta like this. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never done something like this. Do it this way again. So it was huge for us. Big, big win. Okay, now I got to go all the way back to the Oh, yes. So last slide. I just gave that away, I guess. Last slide. So we do have some future plans around our beta. We do have some future plans that involve Pendo that do not necessarily involve our beta programs. We're looking at, again, thinking outside the box, thinking creatively to use Pendo in many other ways. But in terms of our future beta plans, we want to build a richer, better launcher. And what I saw, what's the new launcher called? Guide Center. What what Todd, no, it wasn't Todd. Who's the VP of engineering? What he showed. Is it Eric? Okay. Yeah, the what's new. Was that Eric? Okay. Oh, that was, okay. Well, whoever it was, I'm bad with names. If you spend any time with me this week, you know, because I've probably told you, I'm bad with names. I'm horrible with names. I don't know what it is. I got to work on that. But I need a vitamin of some sort. When he showed that launcher and it had like rich content in it, which I guess technically you could do with the launcher now, but I'd have to do a whole bunch of programming, and I'm not an HTML expert. By the way, huge bonus for that 3 columns, the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and that new view. God, if I just had that to build these 40-step guides, that would have been awesome. But anyway, it's coming. So we want to do that where basically those videos that we had in that first step, we want to have that right inside the launcher. You click that and it comes up, you know, bigger, very dynamic, nice. So we definitely want to make that better. Some customers, not a lot, but a few customers during our beta didn't know you could scroll in the launcher. And so if you're on a Mac, you don't see the scroll bar by default, and they missed it. So they missed a couple of guides that were down below. So we just want to enrich that content. We want to make sure that they can see that better. Want to make the launcher a little bit bigger and just better overall. We want to definitely do more interactive guides. I saw some great examples of people who put in progress bars in their guides, that sort of thing. Very cool stuff. We want to incorporate that. So I'm going to hit those guys up or push Pendo to maybe build that in to make it automatic. Ability to capture enhanced feedback. So we did have some customers who said, to explain to you what I want to see, it would be much easier if I could take a screenshot and just mock up or annotate that screenshot. Move this here, writing that up in text is just hard. And they felt they couldn't do a good job at doing it, so they weren't going to spend the time to type it all out. So we ended up getting some emails with screenshots that were annotated in it, and it kind of took it out of the feedback mechanism here. And they would send it to me, and some of these features I'm not responsible for, so then I had to forward it on, and that caused some delays, et cetera. So we want to figure out a way to collect more enhanceable feedback, allowing them to upload pictures or something. And I have some ideas there, but if anybody else has any ideas along those lines, feel free to catch me afterwards and tell me about it. We'd also like to integrate with Salesforce. One of the scenarios I see here is if somebody gives us a low rating on a feature, then I want the account rep for that customer to be notified. They know they're in the beta, but now they're not, presumably, very happy with the beta. So the account rep needs to just contact them. I don't want to do it. That's why I want the integration with Salesforce. I want the account rep to reach out to them and just, how's the beta going? I saw you guys are giving some feedback. Oh, I noticed this one feedback, what's going on with this feature? And help us, because they have a relationship with the customer. They know what the customer does, how they use our product, which has a big impact on us. It's not a generic product. We have customers that use it in dramatically different ways. And so they have that knowledge, and they can help vet that feedback and tell us, really, is that something we really need to do something about? They also know if there's any upcoming renewals and things like that with the customer, which could impact things. So we have some customer, we're old enterprise. Some of our sales are in the multi-million-dollar range. So if a renewal's coming up for multi-million-dollar and they're unhappy about the new version they're about to get, which is why they're doing the renewal, we sort of need to repair that relationship. So integrating with Salesforce gives us that. We use AHA as our backlog and product management tool. I want to do some integration with it. So when customers give us feedback that's basically, I'd like you to enhance this way. I'd like you to change this way. And sorry, I should have said this, by the way. We walked users through all the new stuff, but we allowed them to explore other areas of the product. And our product has many components. Not everybody owns all the components, but the beta environment had everything. This is also a cross-selling opportunity for us. So we allowed customers to explore and look at those other things. And they would maybe look at some of those things that maybe they looked at before but didn't buy because it wasn't quite good enough for them, and maybe still isn't. And they would give us feedback on those other areas that we didn't ask about. We had a generic feedback form as a guide with a simple step that would just say, what other feedback do you have for us? And they would give us feedback in that. That's great. But I want to turn that feedback into RFEs that we track in our backlog in AHA, and then we go and prioritize that and eventually feed that to engineering to go build. So instead of me having to copy paste, we just like to be able to somehow, maybe using Zapier or some workflow thing, I don't know yet, figure that out. Okay, that's it. I don't know if I talked too long or not. I think I went pretty fast, so sorry for going too fast. Yeah, question. So what I feel like you're asking me is give me a dollar amount that this might have saved you, and I can use that as some ammunition to go sell this to my executives, assuming we're talking apples and apples, our betas to yours, et cetera. I don't really have a dollar amount for you, but it's a lot. I mean, I couldn't tell you if it's $5,000 or $55,000, but it's probably somewhere between the two, simply based on a couple of things. And this is inherent and a little bit, potentially a little bit unique to BMC. In our previous betas, we had multiple product managers, multiple engineering managers, and technical support all involved with the various customers. We kind of divided and conquered. So each person would get 2, or depending on the customer, maybe 3 customers that they would focus on. They were the ones nurturing through the beta, et cetera. So it took 5 or 6 people whose primary job for a couple of months was the beta. In this instance, it was basically my 80% job for about 2 to 3 weeks to set everything up. And then I had Taylor helping me for about a week of that. So let's round up-ish to is about a 1-man month. So what was 10 to 12, maybe 15-man months turned into about 1-man month. So a lot of cost savings there. All the other benefits, the less time it takes for the customers, et cetera, that's not really necessarily a savings to our business, but the perception that I talked about that customers have of us, I think will translate into people more willing to do renewals with us. Those that were maybe on the fence thinking, you know, I've just had a lot of problems. And I'll just be honest with you guys, we have customers that have a lot of problems and they've lingered for years and we've tried to work with them, but we can't just fix everybody's problem, right? So some of them are not terribly happy when it comes to renewal. It's a real struggle to get them to want to spend that additional money with us. This could potentially have an impact on some of those customers because they're seeing we're doing things different. It's tangible. Not only did they see more of what they want in the product, but they see more of what they want out of BMC. Could that translate into money not lost? Certainly, but I can't quantify that for you. So it's hard to answer your question directly, assuming I'm answering the question you're asking. Okay. So just to be clear, we don't have Pendo enabled in our on-premise product yet. This was one instance of our on-premise product that we built out in AWS. So I went in and modified the JavaScript code to do all the, right, for Pendo. I'm going to turn your question around because I think given that, what you're really asking is, do we plan to put Pendo in our on-premise applications? The answer is emphatically yes. I absolutely want to do that. If nothing else, because we get a lot of the analytics of what people are using. We have no visibility into that today other than what our customer support team, technical support team, or the product managers who go and visit those customers learn from those customers themselves. But a lot of times we get customers saying, I use this every day, this is horrible, you got to change this, whatever. Well, it turns out they almost never use that. But when they do, it's very painful. But that's very different. So we kind of get one message from the customer that's different from reality. Pendo is going to help us develop a better picture of reality. So we absolutely want to do that. The other problem we have with on-premise is people don't like to upgrade. It's a lot of work on their side, and it causes downtime. And we spend a tremendous amount of our business dollars working on upgrades. It's probably 30, maybe arguably in some releases, 40% of our engineering effort for each release is focused on the upgrade to get users to that new release. That said, our software is fairly complex, so it's somewhat to be expected. But do we want to do that if customers never do upgrade? Well, in a lot of cases, customers don't even know that a fixed pack or service pack, or whatever you want to call it, or a new release is even out. So we get customers who were on 3 versions old who simply didn't know because they have inbox rules or something to filter all of our emails to them. They didn't know that a new version was out, or they didn't know what was in it enough to care. So we want to put Pendo in and give them some notifications when new releases or even blog articles or, I mean, anything that they might find useful and helpful to them, we want to make sure that they're aware of that, and we're going to use Pendo for that as well. In addition to that, we have an online, what we call our online demo. It's basically a hosted in our own data center version of our product, where people who are prospects primarily can come in and they can check that out. We're going to instrument Pendo there to walk them through not just the new stuff in that release, but all of the main features. We're going to really spend a lot of time building really rich content so that users in our sales team can literally point a prospect at this one URL, go log in, and you can explore the entire application and you'll get it. It may take you several hours to do that exploration, but you'll get out of that what it would take one of our employees or pre-sales guys a day or two or more on premise to show you the whole thing. And it's highly repeatable. So we don't have to worry about one pre-sales guy really not doing a good job, right? We've kind of standardized that. So the pre-sales will still do their thing, but then they'll really point the customers to that, and at their leisure, they can go through. It's going to actually help our sales team be more scalable. So a lot of answers there towards how you could use Pendo and how could you justify Pendo, the purchase of Pendo. Honestly, I think the sky's the limit. A lot of it's going to depend on your organization. But those are some of the ideas we've come up with for ours. Does that help? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
What feedback did you get on the videos?
Well, these were all videos that were taken in our offices and so forth. Some of the feedback we got because of an error that Taylor, since he's not here, I have to throw him under the bus. He got on a Skype call with one of our customers and did not realize he'd hit the video answer button instead of the audio answer button, and he was in his bathrobe. And and it was like mid-morning, it's like 10 a.m. So I was like, Taylor, dude, why are you wearing a bathrobe? He's like, what? Oh, crap, turn it off. Very embarrassing. So some of the feedback we got was, it was really good to see your faces again, not in bathrobes. They did like, when I would call them, I called all of the customers. I did quite a few of the videos, and every customer saw my face at least once. So I kind of did a good cross-section of the guys. So when I got on the phone with them, they didn't say this verbally, but you could tell it's almost like we had met before. And I hadn't talked to almost any of these specific customers before. So it really helped the relationship with the customer, which is exactly what I was shooting for, and we hit the nail on the head. So it had that effect. The only other thing that I would say about the videos is, in the context of a guide, my personal belief, personal opinion, is it's not very helpful to show them the product that they're in. Because they're going to watch this, and then they're going to close that and then go, what was that thing they did again? How did I get there? It's just not helpful. So you got to use the guides to do that. But I thought the best case or use of that video was really just for that face-to-face time. Yeah. So does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Well, I didn't end up earlier than the last guy because they just got, so. Okay, if no questions, thank you very much. Oh, they did tell me this is the last session of the day. There's nothing going on over in Hanover 1 or anything. So the Pendo guys will be here for a while. So if you have anything you want to talk to them about, you want to talk to me about, feel free to grab us. We'll be here, but that effectively ends the session. So again, thanks to the Pendo guys. You guys rock. We all love you. If you can't tell, I'll just say it verbally. But thank you guys for this whole event. And you guys are dismissed. Thank you very much. Thank you.